Well, here's a recent client parcel. It was 22 acres. And really, I love these small parcels because there's a lot you can compact into a small area. And this client had really put a lot of time and effort into the property already. So I really love watching that, seeing people's passion for it. In fact, they had a young family, and it was, you know, a pleasure spending the day with them. But then at the same time, really love their land, especially for the size parcel it was in the area and the bucks that they're seeing here. So really good opportunity and good potential, but it needs to be laid out correctly still. And there's a few key features that I want to talk about in this property that we'll go over. And it's a very long property. And you see it's 22 acres, but that includes about 5-6 acres with the house over here. So really we're left with about 17 acres overall to work with. And that limits the property, of course, but then it's very critical that everything's aligned properly. I want to point out there's a large open area here, large open area in the back here, this open area extended up to here. So the temptation is we're just, you know, it's a small parcel like this. We just need to add a whole bunch of food and be that center of attraction. Well, on a small parcel, you look at this, it's only about 100 yards wide from north to south through this entire property. So you put a giant food source in the middle of it or anywhere at the end. You know, if there's big food over here, you could probably increase this area of food to 5 times greater than it is right now. Could increase this area right here, could have a 3-acre food plot or 2-acre food plot in the front. But you increase it to that much food, now the deer definitely stay off your land. And then you're placing them, depending on where they're at, on other people's property. So first off, food sources. I really like the food over here. It's near the ag. It's a nice stop for deer that are in the property to hit the food plots and then go out to the ag. So it gives them a very good entrance exit point to the ag fields. That food is up against the ag, a large part of that right here. And then this is ag over here. So the majority of the food plots are up against the ag. That maximizes the depth that you have to work with and cover. For example, if you put giant food up here on the north border, there could have been big food here, really big food here. This whole thing could be planted in food. It's a power line right away. A lot of food up here. Well, then you're putting deer up to the north here. And so why do those deer from here need to come down and hit that food until right after dark? And then there would just be a natural movement for them to go down to the ag field. I'd rather control the situation a lot more. So you put the food more on this side with a couple pass-through hunting plots. And then that way those deer can be somewhere here, move through the food plots, and they all end up out in the ag. There's a lot of open woods down in this location, a lot of hunting pressure. So really good spot to access along because there's not many deer on your neighbor's woods anyways, and you're blowing your scent towards that way. Obviously, if they're accessing along the south side, they're doing it with northerly winds that blows on their neighbors, which is fine. There's hunting pressure there, open woods, they're not holding a lot of deer. So it helps you get around your property a lot better. And then in the morning, you can move on this side right here. Afternoon, I would slip in a little ways. And then when you get back here in the ag, obviously there's no deer back there. So a lot of the deer are hanging out more up into here. And so you want to pull that food more down to this side. Just little hunting plots up here. These are probably too big as far as actual size. These are the small little hunting ones. Then those hunting ones, I would say, are more like 1/8 of an acre, 1/4 acre. Where these down here in total, that might be 1.5 acres of food spread out. So a lot larger down here. I hope that makes sense. I sometimes get my sizes a little bit mixed up, but these are a little bit larger down here and separated so you can hold more deer and those deer can come through and hit these. Now, something that's very critical is you want food in somewhat representation stretching from front to back. They get your deer to bed in a linear fashion instead of all around a certain food plot. For example, if you put all that acreage of food right here, then you're throwing deer over here or up to the north that relate to that. They all have to pile on top of each other. And then why are they coming all the way to the open woods? So you want to look at it like, I want these deer coming all the way through the entire length of the parcel, working their way up to the front. That's where the bulk of the food is. They have open timber here, and then that transfers down here so they can hold. The food plots on the client property end up more of a staging area for deer that hold up before they go out to the open ag. At the same time, because you have a lot of cover through the middle in a linear fashion, then those deer can spread out in a linear fashion. You could have some does and fawns to relate to this food source, this. They're bedding in these layers right here, and there's a lot of core area on the inside left for bucks. I really like the water holes where you can have one back in the corner. Imagine coming all the way back here during November, and then you're blowing your scent out into the open ag for a morning hunt, waiting for the deer to come back to you, maybe move up to the north, or maybe they're moving around on the inside of the property, or even this one in between, where this happened to be open. This is open, no cover up here. And then the cover started about right here. So that way, if there are deer here, they can come right to that water hole before coming down here, or maybe they'll just cruise through in the morning and come back through that water hole in that movement. So you're taking advantage of where they could be. Always are mindful where they might be coming off of your neighbor's property. You're facing your own property, but being mindful in this case right here, he could hunt with south winds or southeast winds. And with those winds, it wouldn't blow into that natural movement. So you're looking at the property on the inside, you're on the back side of your cover, waiting for a buck to circle through that water hole and go back into your cover. But being mindful they could come off your left shoulder and come onto the property. So a lot of people ask, well, what about that neighbor? They're moving on and off. Well, for one thing, what we're trying to do with a lot of parallel improvements, running linear with cover and food, trying to get the deer to move more in a linear fashion than that north-south. So that means that we're taking deer and keeping them from crossing that border to just a fraction of what they are right now. So if it's all open cover and they're just going right up to the north and back and forth, you want to flip that movement around. But big picture movement, they're always still going to move north and south. When they do, they'll cross in that same location. So then you're positioning a stand and being very mindful that this buck could actually come from there or deer you're after. So you always want to play that wind. And in that case, sitting in this stand with a southwest wind would be a very bad thing, especially in an afternoon hunt where you expect that deer that might come from your neighbors over there. So moving deer, the cover and the improvements and the food move linear. Now I like a lot of longer food sources in this case. If they could have a long skinny food source like this, or a long skinny food source down here, that wouldn't be bad. But the way things are situated with where their ag's at and where water's at, then it works out a lot better like this. They can just plug and play. They can install these really quick because there's already some other good habitat improvements. They have some tree plantings. They have some fruit plantings around this food plot, some fruit plantings around this food plot. And so that keeps deer keen on this area and then moving out. There's a fruit tree right here, an apple tree. Wouldn't be a bad thing to put one up there too. But bottom line is you're keeping quality food with quality food. And then this inside, they've had a forestry mulcher come in. They've harvested some timber, some big oaks. So now they're starting to get a lot of brush and briars and regeneration, which is a really good thing. But now, like a lot of properties I go to, there's a lot of tops and debris around where deer can't get through. And when you have 17 acres to work with, you can't afford to have a quarter acre here, an eighth of an acre here where deer can't actually walk through. So he's getting the forestry mulcher back out. And let's say he has a pile like this of debris, pile of garbage that expands an eighth of an acre, quarter acre, some giant tops. Deer can't move through there. Then you take that forestry mulcher and you just create lines through it, just so deer can move end to end. The deer trails, they can move end to end, side to side, and out. Now it's great. You have that side cover. Deer can move through it. You get regeneration all around, good cover. So he's already done that in a lot of locations in here. He had someone come in with a forestry mulcher. They had that timbered. Now it's a matter of cleaning it up. And then there's a lot of holes to fill. And that's part of this too. You're trying to look at it like, to get deer from the back all the way to the front to feel comfortable, you can't have any holes. So this area right here, everything's laying down. Switchgrass can fill that in. There's a lot of willow coming in, regeneration, tag alder type brush and bushes. Let that area fill in, but especially you can fill in, if you see on the diagram, everything that's yellow is switchgrass. So even this area of gas line, the temptation, put a big food plot there. Well, it's pointing right off your neighbors to the north, right off your neighbors to the south. So it's throwing deer on and off your property and not allowing them to stay on your property. Now, if this was turned and it was right up here or right down here, that'd be perfect. You might want to plant most of that, but it's not. So this entire area you want in switchgrass, deer can't see through it. Now that buck feels comfortable going front to back and forth by filling in with switchgrass. There's some areas of early successional growth that take place on the inside with shrubs and bushes and briars already coming in. But if a deer can stand in brush and briars right here and look 200 yards out into the ag field, it's not enough cover. So you can see those yellow lines of switchgrass. That's that area protecting the outside, some pockets on the inside, and now you can have that early successional growth that offers browse and food. It's surrounded by switchgrass, and now deer feel comfortable going from front to back. They don't feel comfortable doing that right now. So you're filling in those pieces, and really a lot of it, you know, the switchgrass in open areas like that where there's a lot of sun, 2 years you can have great cover. He's been using a poor quality screening blend on the south side right here that you can see into and see out into the food plots or see out into the ag field from 200 yards away. It's the stuff that goes really super tall, over 10 feet, but then it's cane pulled down below and all the leaf structure's up high so you can look right through it. And so switchgrass is a lot better. You can have 6 feet wide of switchgrass. You can't see it. We have our screening blend we call deer fence. It's very solid. It's supposed to be a solid 8 to 10 foot wall that you can't see through, as opposed to boasting that it's 14 feet tall or 12 feet tall, but now you're looking through cane poles and can see right out into what you're trying to screen or screen from when you're going in and out of the property. So that was part of it too. This area is very open right here from front to back. So you're filling in those pieces, shrinking the food plots so deer feel more comfortable, and then going from front to back, filling in those holes. I hope that makes sense. You know, I talk about depth of cover. On a property like this, you could have all the food right here, and there's some brush in there, so you want to maintain the cover. But if you had a bunch of food up here, do the deer relate to it all the way back here? And so I want good improvements where you have a hunting plot, water holes. I want the deer to feel welcome to move all the way through the parcel. We talk about lines of movement where deer have to feel comfortable going from point A to point B. Their attractions to be spread out. That's why you don't typically put a water hole on a food plot, because those are two improvements you could put 50 to 100 yards apart to further define the buck goes from point A to point B. Sometimes there's no level of traction in between. So why are you going to expect them to go 300 yards from bedding to food when there's no water holes, there's no mock scrape, there's no timber improvements, there's no natural vegetation, there's no fruit trees, there's no water holes, whatever it might, mock scrapes, whatever it might be to get them front to back. Because once he gets the pattern established that he likes that food plot, that water hole, he knows where that food plot is, these food plots. We have apple trees. He had a really nice orchard started that go like this on top of these food plots. It continues that linear movement of apples. I encouraged him to add to it, because then that is encouraging that parallel movement. And then you're wrapping it all together with deer trails that connect the features. So you have deer trails that go between. This is all in switchgrass. Deer trails that go between. They go up to the food plot, the water holes. They can wrap around the water holes. And it's not that a buck makes a loop. The point is that if he's in this area, he's going to go by that stand, that stand, that stand. Or maybe he goes by this stand, this stand. Bottom line is they follow those lines, and they're invited again to go front to back, parallel to the borders, and that linear movement using the length of the property. A lot of times, a property that is long like this, I actually like that long rectangle property better than just a square. And the reason is because all the way to the back here, on a property like this property is almost a half mile deep. 20 acres times 110 yards is a half mile deep. So it's a long ways back to the back here. And when you think of that, the deer that are back here, the bucks that might be moving here might be totally different up here. So I want to bring those all together so they're moving front to back. But at the same time, that 20 acres and how long it is gets into different buck movements. You want to take those deer that are moving this way or this way, like this, And you want, when they hit here, you don't want them just going straight through. You want them turning and then taking their movements and moving right to left and on the property. You want nice turns in here, just mowed brush trails. And that way the deer are moving parallel to your borders and in front of your stand locations instead of just going straight through the property, on and off, never hitting your improvements. You want them to come onto the property in a property like this, turn right to left. I hope that makes a lot of sense. I hope that can give you something to take back to your own property. I see a lot of long, narrow properties like this, especially in, I'll call it like rural estate areas, most where it's suburban / rural living, 10-acre parcels, 5 acres are common, a 40-acre, and then all of a sudden a 120-acre ag field. That's what this is like, mixed wood lots. Be the one in the property where you encourage the deer to go front to back. You have small improvements to do so. You're not using big food plots that prohibit buck bedding and block buck bedding. And then you could really take advantage and have a lot of stand locations. You can hunt, all these X's are stands. You can hunt lots of different winds, access primarily away from the ag. In the morning against the ag, you can circle around, go in one way on the woods edge side and the cover side to the north, come back out on the ag field against the open woods in the afternoon or daylight hours, go in one way, come out go on the south side, wrap around on the north side. So that really good exterior access is really important, and hope that makes some sense to you. That's a 22-acre piece, really 17. And Dylan, I'll put you on the spot, and you can cut this out if you don't. But do you have any comments or?
No, I love it. This actually looks, kind of similar to a 10-acre one that I did 2 weeks ago, and it's very interesting. The small parcels are some of my favorites to do as well, because I don't think people realize how much success you can realistically actually have, even on smaller chunks like that. If you can build some depth of cover and keep it secure, I feel like you can still, play with some of the big dogs in the neighborhood as far as other parcels go.
Well, definitely, and that's another thing too, we'll just add, when you have a small parcel like this, because most people, and I'm saying 95% of people, overhunt their food plots, they overpressure their land, they hunt their tree stands with poor winds, then it's really easy to make 20 acres feel like 100, like most hundreds. Really, if someone's hunting that 100 acres poorly, then a neighbor that has 20 acres and is hunting it correctly is worth far more than that 100 acres. So you don't have to have 100 acres in a spot like this, because there's a lot of different landowners. That means there's a lot of different landowners that are managing their land and their hunt poorly. So I think you told me, Dylan, last year, maybe it was last season, you had a small parcel where someone got back to you and said they shot a nice buck on.
Yeah, up in Tomahawk, northern Wisconsin, and that's not a big deer area, and there's a lot of pressure. And so for Randy, great client of mine, still stay in good touch with him. He killed a great, I'm gonna guess 3.5, maybe a 4.5-year-old deer, surrounded by public land on his 15-acre parcel.
Yeah. That's really rewarding for us, because it's like,
oh man, love it.
Isn't it hard to tell people though? Because you tell them you explain to them the concept. You got to be careful when you hunt it, and it's not to say they only have to hunt it twice a year.
Yeah.
They just have to be very careful, and that's the thing where you walk away going, I know there's potential there, but I'm not sure they're going to follow the script as far as how it needs to be hunted.
Sure. Yeah, and that's why I like having as many stand opportunities as you can. Even on those smaller parcels, if you have 6 different stand locations, that gives you a lot of different opportunities on different winds, so you can really keep your core area sanctified as possible.
And you could still have morning stands in that case, evening stands, different approaches. So I hope this makes sense. We'll try to bring these about once a month to you. They're all different. I'll key on a lot of these smaller ones, but imagine, and this is the really cool thing, imagine you take this that's 22 acres, 17 acres, and you expand the same set of concepts to a parcel that's 160, 200, 240. If you can do it on these small parcels, those big parcels are a lot easier. They just take a lot more resources of time and money and improvements to get them dialed in. So again, there's a lot you can fit into a small parcel. Hope that you can take some of this back to your own parcel and give yourself an incredible micro parcel hunt going into this fall. Guys, it's food plot time, and I really urge you to check out our food plot company, Pure Wildlife Blends. It's called Pure for a reason. I invite you to check it out. We have food plot blends for all types, and we try to give you all this content on YouTube, articles on the site to help you make sure you not only do it right, plant it right, but you pick the right seed blend for your circumstances.